Hearsay and an encounter with Jesus. Hörensagen und eine Begegnung mit Jesus. You've heard in the news about a new electronic device. Some of your friends buy this device and are really excited about it and tell you about how good it is and that you should have it too. You've already heard lots of good things about it, but you're still not quite ready to buy it for yourself. You hear about somebody who can help you with a specific task that is difficult for you. He can help you. He wants to help you. But you think about it a little while and you never call him up to ask him for help. We can know about both of these things just from hearsay, but what is the difference between knowing something or someone only by hearsay and knowing the same thing or person from a kind of personal experience? In 1958, America's first commercial jet air service began with the flight of the Boeing 707. A month after that first flight, a traveler on a piston-engine, propeller-driven DC-6 airliner struck up a conversation with a fellow passenger. The passenger happened to be a Boeing engineer. The traveler asked the engineer about the new jet aircraft, whereupon the engineer began speaking at length about the extensive testing Boeing had done on the jet engine before bringing it into commercial service. He recounted Boeing's experience with the engines from the B-17 to the B-52. When his traveling companion asked him if he himself had yet flown on the new 707 jet airliner, the engineer replied, "Well, I think I'll wait until it's been in service a while." That's also the way it is with faith in Jesus Christ. There's a difference between if we only know Jesus from hearsay or if we're ready to seek Him and to experience Him for ourselves. Our sermon text today is a living example of this. The blind beggar Bartimaeus in Jericho has heard some things about Jesus, but he has little chance of meeting Jesus because he is blind and most likely cannot do anything else in his life besides beg on the curb outside of his town. But one day Jesus comes to Jericho, and he doesn't stay long. He's only passing through Jericho, and he has little time. He's got to go to Jerusalem to the Passover feast. And what's more, he's got to go to Jerusalem to suffer on the cross for the people and for all mankind. Humanly speaking, you might say he's in a hurry. The large crowd of people, the great crowd of people traveling with him are really excited about him, and they're accompanying him to the feast. But they slow him down. They hold him up time and time again. These are the last people Jesus will heal. And yet, there's still so many more people who need His help. Can or should Jesus help them all? One Friday afternoon several years ago, when I wanted to buy a train ticket from the ticket machine at the train station, two young ladies asked me quickly there if I knew how to use the ticket machine properly. But I was in such a big hurry myself, and so I couldn't help them much at all. Otherwise, it would have held me up too long, and I would have missed my train. I had no time to help people on either side of me. In fact, Jesus is even almost already through town, the ancient destroyed city of Jericho, not the entrance to the new city built by King Herod, meant in Luke chapter 18. And Jesus is on his way out when he passes by Bartimaeus on the side of the road. Perhaps Jesus even wants to go on as well. But he is not in a hurry as much as his disciples are. What gives Jesus a reason to stop and still help Bartimaeus? There are already so many other people who need his help too. A large crowd of people also passes through with Jesus and his disciples. The disciples are happy to be with Jesus, and they are already looking forward in jubilant expectation to the feast. But some people remain on the roadside of the event. They are also on the fringes, the edges of normal daily life as well, because they are handicapped. For the Jews back then, blindness, especially blindness from birth, was even considered by some to be a punishment from God. Blind people could only beg along the roadside and hope to be helped to get their livelihood from the mercy of people passing by. A roadside on the outside or at the entrance of a city was a good place to beg, but it was a hard life. You were totally at the mercy of other people. What's it like being blind? The last few days, I've really enjoyed the beautiful colors of budding trees in the springtime here in Tübingen. With good normal eyes, we can experience these wonderful colors and the beautiful change of the seasons and praise and worship God for it. But as a blind person, you can't see anything, only darkness. Back then, all you could do was just sit on the roadside and beg. One of these blind men on the side of the road is Bartimaeus, the son of Timaeus, which means the son of the honored man. He lives in total darkness as a blind man, yet he still finds out what's going on around him by listening to people, by hearsay from what other people talked about. Many people are going up to the Passover feast in Jerusalem. Perhaps many of the people in the crowd will have mercy on him and give him a little bit more alms. But is this his only hope? This is no real improvement of his situation. Bartimaeus has apparently already heard some things about Jesus, perhaps that Jesus has healed other people, other blind men, and that he's also on his way, passing through Jericho, on his way to the Passover feast in Jerusalem. So what does Bartimaeus think, and what does he do with the fact that Jesus is passing by him? What does Bartimaeus do with what he knows about Jesus from hearsay? Many people know Jesus only this way, from hearsay. Perhaps they heard it at school or in the news media, or what somebody has told them who is a Christian, or even somebody who's against Christians. Their opinions all differ. Some are open, some still know too little, some are critical and suspicious, others are disinterested and unimpressed. The news about Jesus comes, and also with it the chance to get to know Jesus better. But they don't go, uninterested, unimpressed from what they've heard, hearsay. They just stay on the roadside while the chances to get to know Jesus pass on by them. What a pity. It's like when a doctor is present who can really help a sick person, but doesn't, because the sick person doesn't recognize what the doctor there wants to help him, that the doctor there wants to help him, or that because the sick person doesn't allow him to help him. What a terrible pity this is. Hearsay doesn't help him at all. But Bartimaeus is not like that. He draws the right conclusion from what he knows from hearsay. Jesus is there, and Jesus can help him see again. Now is his chance, if he can only get Jesus' attention. This is what he believes. This is what he hopes for. And so he does the only thing he can do. He begins shouting. But his shouting only collides against the already existent din of the crowd, great crowd passing by. There are most likely many other people shouting from the crowd to Jesus. How can Jesus hear the cries of a blind man on the roadside at all? It's already loud enough. Other people tell Bartimaeus to stop it and to be quiet and to quit trying to call out to Jesus for help. There's so many people out there that block his way to Jesus and want to silence his shouts. And so Bartimaeus has to shout even louder. What is he shouting? Only for Jesus, the Son of David, the King of Israel, who has also come to save Israel and himself. Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. Bartimaeus doesn't know anything else to shout except, Jesus, help me in my blindness. Jesus, help me in my inability. Jesus, help me. Otherwise, there is no one else, no other person who will help me. This is the way life also seems to be. There really is no one who helps us or can help us except Jesus. The cries of some people who need Jesus' help are sometimes very loud and very annoying. They disturb this joyful atmosphere of the many people with Jesus in the crowd. Shh! Be quiet. Stop shouting. What does Jesus want with you? He can't hear you anyway. It's an embarrassing fact. Some people need Jesus for their blindness, for their physical or psychological illness, for the deepest wounds of their souls and the darkness of their lives. They cry out for help regardless of how, from where, but they are in despair. And so they cry out even louder all the more in their lives if help does not come by doing so. Perhaps they don't even know to shout out the name of Jesus because they haven't heard much about it. And so they don't get any help or any mercy, but only hard, discouraging words. Be quiet. Stop disturbing us. Too bad. You could really despair at this and give up, but Bartimaeus doesn't do this. Bartimaeus has only heard about Jesus before from hearsay, but this impersonal knowledge doesn't stay what it is. Bartimaeus wants to meet Jesus personally and ask Him to heal him. The harshest voices of the people who just want to shut him up do not discourage him, but only make him more resolute. And so Bartimaeus just shouts all the more. He is shouting for Jesus, crying from his whole heart and with all his strength, only for Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. And he is successful. Jesus hears him. Jesus calls him to himself because Bartimaeus can't get through the whole full crowd of people himself. And so Jesus asks some people to bring and fetch Bartimaeus to him. The large crowd of people, thankfully, cooperates with him. Jesus asks people from the crowd, other people, to call him to bring him to Jesus. This is exactly how Jesus deals with us too. He calls us through other people, and He asks us and uses us to bring still other people to Him. People who do not believe and are spiritually blind. People who, because of their problems, are hindered from coming to Him. Let's take another look at this verse in verse 49. Jesus stopped and said, "Call him." So they called to the blind man. "Cheer up, on your feet. He's calling you." This is, in fact, exactly our message to all people, great and small, young and old, disabled and in perfect health, rich or poor, regardless of nationality. Jesus is calling you. Why? Because we are spiritually blind. Because we will not go on any further in life or in eternity without Him, without His mercy. We otherwise do not see what we've been created for as human beings in the first place. Without Jesus, we just vegetate on the level of a beggar. We can even be very busy and active, build and be everything can go well. We can get good grades in our studies, find work and have success, build a career, but still be poor as beggars and blind, spiritually speaking. For otherwise, we do not see that we need an encounter with the living God, and that this living God would also like to have this encounter with us and in this fellowship with us as well. Before God, we are all beggars. But oftentimes we think we're not this at all. We think that we're the Lord's. We determine the courses of our lives. We're smug and proud, sure of ourselves. But actually we beg. We are always dependent on God's grace and goodness, like blind men who don't know what will happen to them tomorrow. In our English class one Wednesday evening several years ago, we talked about the global financial crisis, this financial crunch. And after class, I began personally to worry about my own livelihood, money and work and finances in the future, after I just discussed the seriousness of this financial crisis in a more abstract, intellectual, and sometimes even joking way with my class members. But then I thought to myself, Jim, if you think about this, if you really think about this a whole lot and really worry about it, you won't even be able to sleep at night, and then you'll hardly be able to act or work or do anything except just live in fear and panic. I thought to myself, Lord, I've just got to trust you with all of these things. If the DAX or the stock market on Wall Street goes up or collapses, I've just got to live each day for you the way you want me to live, and to trust that you will supply me with everything I need. The message that we should hear in our spiritual blindness, and the message that we should tell other people in Jesus' name is, cheer up. On your feet. Jesus is calling you. Jesus cares about you and me and about everything that could ever cause us to worry. Peter writes in 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 7, cast all your anxiety on Him because He cares for you. And in Psalm 55, verses 22 and 23, we read, cast your cares on the Lord, and He will sustain you. Blind Bartimaeus throws his cloak aside, jumps up, and comes to Jesus. Why does he throw his coat aside? As a blind beggar, his cloak is the most valuable thing he owns. His cloak protects him from the wind and the cold when he sits outside for many hours on the roadside and begs. Remember how cold and windy it was here only a few days ago? Without a jacket, he loses a piece of his daily life and of his daily security. Bartimaeus simply leaves the cloak behind and forgets it and goes directly to Jesus without hesitation. Some of the people in the crowd take him by the arm and lead him through the crowd of so many people to Jesus. Now, if we want to get to know Jesus better, that can mean that we must give up some securities of daily life and leave them behind us. Meeting Jesus is more important for Bartimaeus than his cloak and everything else, because this meeting can completely change his life. Jesus asks Bartimaeus, so what do you want me to do for you? Jesus isn't irritated at all. It's not a problem for him to talk to this poor blind man. Jesus wants to serve him. The Son of David, the King of Israel, the eternal living Son of God, would like to help and to serve Bartimaeus and honor this poor blind beggar in front of all these people. What do you want me to do for you? Jesus honors the King of Israel, honors this poor blind beggar in front of this large crowd of people. Bartimaeus is now really a son of the honored man that is Jesus. That's the meaning of his name, Bartimaeus, son of the honored man. A man who most likely had never been served in a friendly way in all his life. A man most people didn't have any kind words of honor for. Jesus serves with his complete attention and love. This is the help of God in our lives as well. God is in Jesus completely here from us, not far away, not distant, even when we cannot see Him like Bartimaeus. We cannot see Jesus yet, but He is right there with His love and His help and His care for every problem, every worry we have. Blind Bartimaeus says, Rabbi, I want to see again. Bartimaeus wants to see, and Jesus heals him immediately. It's possible that God will not answer all of our requests, as he did with Bartimaeus. But still, he is here with his presence, with his words that always give us comfort and help, and with his love and affection that can help us and can change our lives from one instant to the next, just as fast as it did Bartimaeus' life. At the end of the story, Jesus answers in verse 52, "Go, your faith has healed you." Immediately, Bartimaeus receives his sight and followed Jesus along the road. So what do we want Jesus to do for us? How can our faith help us? Blind man left behind his cloak, his protection for the night, perhaps his most valuable possession. He just throws it aside and comes to Jesus. What is it with trusting in Jesus that can make all the difference between just staying with hearsay or coming to Jesus and following him on his way? Our faith just stays with hearsay until we have the courage to come to Jesus, blind but trusting in what we hope he can do for us. During the terrible days of World War II in England, a father holding his young son by the hand ran out of a building that had been struck by a bomb at night. In the front yard was a shell hole. Seeking shelter from the bomb attack as soon as possible, the father jumped down into the hole and held his arms out for his son to follow. Terrified, yet hearing his father's voice in the darkness telling him to jump, the boy replied, "But Daddy, I can't see you." The father, looking up from the darkness against the sky, tinted red by the burning buildings, called out to the silhouette of his son, "But I can see you, son. Jump." So the boy jumped because he trusted his father. The Christian faith enables us to face life and meet death, not because we can see, but with the certainty that we are seen, not that we know all the answers, but that we are known. The Apostle Paul says in 1 Corinthians 13, in conclusion, this is something that we must also understand one day. For some people it happens fast, for others it takes almost a lifetime to figure it out. We're like Bartimaeus because we cannot see Jesus. At first, we can only get to know him by hearsay. But what is the difference between knowing someone or something only from hearsay and knowing the same thing or someone from a kind of personal experience? Jesus is calling us to himself. This person we've never seen before, who lived back then 2,000 years ago and died and rose again, is still alive, and he's still calling us to himself. And he is asking us specifically, just like Bartimaeus, what do you want for me to do? It's not a harsh question like, what do you want from me anyway? As if we had disturbed Jesus by calling for him. But it is a real question for us. Wherever there is something lacking in our lives, Jesus wants to listen and wants to act. Jesus wants to give us clarity where there's fog and ambiguity. Lord, I want to see. Lord, I want to see where I am blind and don't know any more about my life and my future, my decisions, my relationships, my problems. Lord, I want to see so that I may simply have a better, closer relationship to you. This is my prayer for us all. Amen.